If you need help deciding between the Sony a6100 or the ZV-E10, I'm going to give you a comparison in the video quality, autofocus performance, and rolling shutter, along with some differences in camera features to help you figure out which is the best for video for you. First off, we have the low light video image quality, and as you can see, there's no real noticeable difference between the two cameras when at f1.4 and 400 ISO. The noise level as well as sharpness looks the same between the cameras, but the ZV-E10 does seem to give a bit more contrast and a touch of red in the image straight out of the camera. And even when pushing the ISO up to 1600, which is the max that I typically use for an APS-C camera, both images are still usable with the same levels of noise and sharpness. But keep in mind that this is just with me standing near a street light, and even if a camera does well in low light, you still want to add your own lights to low light situations to shape your shots even better and get the best quality possible regardless of an outdoor or indoor lower light setting. And to compare the quality in a better lit environment, again you can see that the image quality is nearly identical with the ZV-E10 having slightly more contrast and saturation out of camera, but this is also based on not using any picture profiles. The ZV-E10 has the option for picture profiles, which allows you to be able to record a more washed out image to allow for more color correction and grading options when you get to editing. And speaking of color correction and grading as well as other editing features, I'm about to start making more editing tutorials on the channel as well, so let me know down in the comments what editing software you're using right now. But the image quality is going to be good regardless of which camera you pick, so let's see how the autofocus performs in a couple of different tests. The autofocus facial tracking had no problem staying locked onto my face while moving in towards the camera on the a6100, and the performance was pretty much identical with the ZV-E10, which doesn't surprise me because Sony's autofocus has been really good the past few years. I did notice the ZV-E10 seemed to rack focus to the background and back to my face quicker than the a6100 when moving in and out of frame. And another thing you're probably starting to notice is the rolling shutter when moving around from side to side on both the cameras. But before we address that, let's look at another autofocus test. I like to do a dolly zoom test on all my cameras and lenses because it's a complex maneuver that shows the autofocus works really well if it can stay locked on while moving and zooming. The a6100 did really well on the test with multiple usable shots. The autofocus worked a lot better during the dolly forward while zooming out than it did on the opposite movement, which is typically the case when I do this test. The ZV-E10 seemed to perform about the same on the dolly forward as the a6100, with even better performance on the dolly backward while zooming in. I did notice the image was more jittery on the ZV-E10 during the movement, which was probably due to the camera being so light, but a little bit of post-stabilization took care of that problem. Now when it comes to cheaper entry-level cameras like the ZV-E10 and a6100, you're going to have the issue of rolling shutter, which is a jello-like look to objects in the image when moving the camera around quickly or when something in the frame moves quickly from side to side because of the way the sensor scans the image for video. And the higher the focal length of your lens, the more this will stand out. But even in these lower end cameras, the rolling shutter is still quite noticeable when shooting at a wide focal length like 17mm. However, if you are aware of the issue and make slower, more deliberate moves, you can still get good panning shots without this being a problem. I just wouldn't plan on doing any whip pans with these types of cameras unless you don't really care about that warped look in your shot. And the biggest noticeable difference that the ZV-E10 has is the fully articulating touchscreen, which makes shooting video in just about any situation easier, especially if you plan on doing any vlogging. However, with the a6100 being an older camera, it has an older style 180-degree tilting screen, which still allows you to see yourself when vlogging, but as soon as you add a microphone on top of the camera, your view of the screen will be pretty much non-existent in a vlogging type scenario. And another feature the ZV-E10 has is a zoom switch on the front. I have mine set to be used with the clear image zoom, which allows you to zoom in on the image up to an extra 50% with no noticeable loss in image quality. However, if you're using a power zoom lens, this feature can be used to control the zoom on that lens. With everything we went over, I definitely have to go with getting the Sony ZV-E10 over the a6100 simply for the fully articulating touchscreen, but it did also slightly perform better than the a6100 in the autofocus test, which makes it an even better deal. Along with that is the fact that it's $50 cheaper than the a6100 and comes with the ability to use picture profiles, making the ZV-E10 a great choice for a beginner camera for filmmaking. If you have any questions about either of these cameras, post them down in the comments below and I'll try to help you out the best I can there. I have lots of other videos on the channel showing filmmaking techniques to help you improve your skills even more, whether that's just in camera settings or things like framing, lighting, all kinds of stuff to help you, and it'll really improve your videos really quickly instead of just slowly trying to figure out how do I make this work? Because I know it can be really frustrating when you think, what's the cinematic setting for this? There's a lot that goes into it, and this channel is all about helping you do that. So hit that like button if this video is helpful, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one.